Okay, quick catch up on where we've got to. So we're looking at theory of the firm, and what we said so far is we're trying to build a model of what happens to firms' costs as it expands. At the moment, we're looking at what happens to the firm in the short run. We said the short run is the period of time in which there's at least one fixed factor of production. So that's the actual period of time in which the firm is operating. We said that the long run is sort of a planning period in which all factors of production are variable. And we'll look at the long run eventually. So the long run is just a series of short runs, and basically is what's going on. So the firm operates in the short run, like Dover books before we move to 333. In the long run, we get 333, but as soon as we get it, we're back in the short run again. So as a firm expands in the short run, we said that it faces a problem, and the problem that it faces is diminishing returns to its variable factor. So diminishing returns generally to the variable factor, which is generally labour. And what that means is that in the short run, as we try and expand, as we try and increase our output, so there's output. So that's as we try and increase. In order to increase our output, we'll need more factor production. We'll need more labour, so that's workers. What happens to output? Is that it gets harder and harder to increase that output. That's what we said so far. And we said that marginal product, which shows how much each extra worker produces. Initially, it might rise, but eventually it falls like that. Up to this point, we have increasing returns to the variable factor. Total output is rising more and more quickly. Beyond that, we have diminishing returns to the variable factor, and eventually we have negative returns. So here, total product is rising more quickly. Here, total product, because marginal product is still positive, total product is rising more slowly. And finally here, because marginal product is negative, total product is actually falling. So no firm would ever operate in that bit. And if you show how, if we look at how marginal and total product operate together, then we said, again, that's labour, that's output, that's your marginal product, and then what we said is that initially output rises more quickly, then it rises more slowly until that point where total product starts to fall. So that's marginal product, and then we have increasing returns to the variable factor, diminishing returns to the variable factor, and negative returns. Okay, so we said fine, that's useful to know. And then we said we're also interested in what's called average product, which is essentially productivity. Average product is output per worker. And as we said last lesson, that's just total output divided by the number of workers. And since we said that total product is the marginal product of first plus the marginal product of second and so on, then the average product of 3 workers is the extra output of the first plus the extra output of the second plus the extra output of the third divided by 3 workers. And we, if you remember, that's magnetic. If we, the pen just stuck to the border. If you remember, I lined you all up against the wall, and we said, what's the relationship between? Again, that's my quantity of labour, and that's output. What's the relationship between marginal average product? So we said to start with, if we have 1 worker and my marginal product is 10 units, then the average product is also 10 units. If the second worker produces 12, the average will now be 10 plus 12 divided by 2. That'll be 11. And what we said is, as long as the next one is above the current average, then the average will go up. As soon as the next one's below the current average, then the average will go down. So that's above that, so the average goes up. That's above that, so the average goes up. That's above that, so the average goes up. So even though the marginal's coming down here, the average continues to rise. Until that point, the marginal's now below the average, and the average starts to fall. And those are our product curves. And what we so we need to understand the relationship between marginal, average, and total product. It's quite important. I'll set you something on that probably after the next lesson. What we then started to do is we said, well, okay, that's all very well, but the purpose of looking at all this, was to look at costs. in the short run. And we said in the short run, if you remember, I asked you to name lots of costs. We came up with a variety of stuff. And we came up with two types of costs. We said on the one hand, there are fixed costs. It's not that they could never change, but what we said is that they don't change with an extra output. We had Egbert, the very keen student, and when he joins the class, most of our costs don't change. Our rent doesn't change. The teachers' salaries don't change, and so on. So fixed costs, they don't increase in total as output rises. As I say, these are classic things like rent and often salaries. They're not normally related to the number of units that you make. We said, we came up with a variety of businesses in which these might be, very, very high. We looked at airlines, cinemas. We said in most of those businesses, an extra customer, doesn't actually affect your costs at all. Most of their costs are fixed. Variable costs, they do rise as output rises. So they increase in total as output rises. So if you're a taxi driver, an extra customer, you've got to pay more petrol. We came up with fast food joints. They need more. They need more. Burgers and buns and cheese and so on and so forth. So these tend to be things, particularly like raw materials. So so the more output, the more your variable costs will be in total. The more output, your fixed costs in total will stay the same. And what we did right at the end of the lesson is said, well, okay, fine, let's start to say, well, what, as the firm's output increase, what actually is going to happen to these costs? And I got you to say, well, what we're going to put down here now is units of output. And what we got up here, is now costs. What he said is that as output increases, your fixed costs stay the same. So if I'm an airline, and that's the salary of the pilot and the fuel, it doesn't really matter how many passengers I have. My total fixed costs remain the same. Suppose it costs £5,000 to fly a plane across the Atlantic. Then whether I have one passenger, two passengers, or three passengers, my fixed costs remain the same. But what we did right at the end is say, well, why do they want to fly full? We talked a lot about this idea that they'll want to maximise their usage. Make sure that they've got as many passengers as possible. So why is that? And we said, well, look, if there's one passenger, then the cost per passenger is £5,000. If you've got two passengers, it's now £2,500 each, still £5,000. If you had five passengers, then the cost would be £1,000 each. If I had 10 passengers, it would be £500 each. So what happened is that the more passengers, the lower the cost per passenger would be. And we said it would, gradually, it can never be zero because all we're doing is we're dividing 5,000 by a number of passengers. But it'll become smaller and smaller and smaller as output increases. And that is your fixed cost per unit, or average fixed cost curve. And that explains why businesses like cinemas, like airlines and so on, they want to fly as full as they can. You can see that in one of two ways. Either they want to spread those fixed costs over more passengers, or because their costs are always the same, they just want to make as much revenue as they possibly can. Right, we'll pick this up again tomorrow, but that's just a quick reminder of where we got to.